Welcome to the Living Out podcast, helping people, churches and society talk about faith and sexuality. Hello and welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us. My name's Anne Witten and I'm joined by my colleague and good friend Ed Shaw. Ed, I've recently returned from a short trip to see a friend in Sweden where I got to do some of my favourite things. So I swam in a lake, I went kayaking on a canal, I visited an aerospace museum and I got to eat some of the famous Swedish meatballs. So I was wondering, what's your idea of a perfect holiday?
So I just got the vision. There's so much I could say to all of that. I don't know where to start, really. I mean, I could just head down the hill for the meatballs to IKEA. I mean, that would be cheaper, wouldn't it? It's true. What my favourite holiday involves, to be honest, very little action. I love just sitting on a beach with a book and every so often walking around the island where I prefer to be. But I would love to kayak around this island. There are kayaks available. I never quite had the courage to hire one and go around the island all by myself. But at some point, I want to do that.
You definitely should. It's good work. You just need to do a bit of arm.
Well, that's the worry. I have visions of going for a kayak for the first time and having a heart attack and my body being found floating out to sea. But, you know, that'd be a way to go, wouldn't it? The first time I've ever done...
depressing way to start.
The first time I've actually done any physical fitness for a while, you know. But it'd be quite a Viking way to go, wouldn't it? Being found floating in a boat. That's what the Vikings did.
You have to be on fire. I think they were on fire.
Well, when people found me, they could burn it, couldn't they? This is now going...
Oh, my goodness. This has taken a very dark... I'm going to move swiftly on, and I hope that Dan has something a little less dramatic to say. So in this series, we are meeting authors. So we're interviewing people who've written articles, blogs and reviews for the Living Out website. And we're delighted today to be joined by one of the Living Out team who's actually managed to avoid being on the podcast up till now. I'm not sure how that's happened. So we're saying hello today to Dan Reid. Welcome, Dan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, you do work for us, so I don't think it was optional, was it? So we've been sharing about holidays. Dan, what's your idea of a perfect holiday?
I was going to say I was on board with Ed until he died in a kayak. Pretty much.
You'd jump off the burning kayak, would you?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, as I'm on holiday. Yeah, I think probably sitting on a beach reading a book, maybe exploring a city, but definitely looking at a mountain rather than walking up a mountain.
You have this thing about walks, don't you? You don't like walks.
No, my poor dad, he loves walks and he takes us on lots of walks, but I just find countryside walks do nothing for me. I just get more and more miserable as they go on, and I just want to get home as quickly as possible. But I try, but I fail.
Oh, bless you. So beach and a book, that's the way forward.
I think so.
Excellent. Great stuff.
Dan, I need to ask you about your role at Living Out and pretend I don't know what it is. But for the benefit of those who are listening in who don't know what you do, what are you doing for Living Out at the moment?
Yeah, so I do a bit of admin and PA to you, Ed, which hopefully you've noticed.
Really? He's a very good PA.
Thanks. So that involves answering lots of emails or answering them very slowly. I'm sorry if you're listening and I've not replied. Helping out with events, helping organise those, scheduling our social media stuff. Just generally whatever needs doing.
Great. And anything you've enjoyed most? I mean, I'm not going to make this into an appraisal, but, you know, anything you particularly enjoyed?
I did it. Well, it's a really great team to be a part of. So we had our staff day back in June, which is really good fun, kind of planning ahead for the coming year and, just spending time together.
They are. Yeah, they're a good team. They're a good team. We want to get to know you a bit, Dan, and, you're on the team Living Out, and as you're same-sex attracted yourself. When did you first become aware of that?
Yeah, I think it's probably when I was like 14, 15 maybe. It's kind of in secondary school. And I just started to notice I was noticing the guys at school and not the girls. It was a time You might remember when the fashion was for guys to wear their trousers basically around their knees. So I was being flashed with boxers all day long at school and didn't know where to look. And I kind of probably knew at that point something was going on. But yeah, I was kind of hiding it at that point, I suppose.
Yeah. What was your sort of strategies as a teenager, watching people's trousers float down there, whatever?
Yeah, I think very much. I was quite scared. Didn't want anyone to notice me looking at them or looking at another guy, and didn't want to tell anyone about it. I think life was going pretty well to that point. I was doing well at school and was relatively popular. And it just felt like if anyone found this out, then I'd get bullied at school, or maybe, I don't know. I just thought if anyone found out, then life would be over, sort of thing.
And were you a Christian at that stage?
Yeah, I was. So I'd been a Christian since quite early on. I'd always gone to church. Probably would have called myself a Christian from like age 7 or so.
And so how did you sort of process the fact that you're a Christian and the fact that your sexuality seemed to be a sort of sexuality that Christians often aren't very positive about?
Yeah, that did take a long time. I think, somehow I had got it in my head that this was wrong, or sort of, not God's plan, not God's design. And I think it was a sort of barrier between me and God for a lot of years. I think I can remember thinking it was like I needed to sort of deal with this sexuality thing, and then I could be like a proper Christian, and I could be properly close to God. So I was calling myself a Christian, but in the back of my head, it was kind of like, well, I need to deal with this and not let anyone find out. And so I think it was only when I kind of went to uni and thought about not going to church when I got there, but ended up getting stuck into church. And I heard a sermon by you, Ed, actually, several sermons. And I think you were kind of open about your sexuality at some point in church, and just made me realize there was someone else who was a Christian who was same-sex attracted, that it was kind of possible to be both, that I could be attracted to the same sex and also follow Jesus. I didn't have to kind of have one or the other. So that kind of was the start of working it out, I guess, but that took a lot of years from kind of school to uni.
And who did you sort of first tell about your sexuality? Who were you first open to?
Yes, that was when I was 21. I told a friend in a small group at church. Started with one person, and then I think over a week or so at that time, I then sort of texted a few more friends, wrote to my parents and my siblings. So it was fairly small circle at first.
And how do people respond?
Yeah, I was very blessed, really. People were really good. Very understanding, not kind of what I'd feared at all, that people would reject me or kick me out of home, or I don't know, you kind of imagine the worst, I think, when you've been hiding it for so long. So the friend I told first just kind of asked some good questions, like how long had I been aware of that, struggling with that, and took me into 1 Corinthians, I think, a passage about singleness and kind of our attention being undivided. So that was really helpful. And my parents, I wrote them a letter and said, "Oh, this might be a bit of a shock, but I think I'm only attracted to men." And my mum texted back to say she got it, and actually it wasn't that much of a shock. Everyone was really kind and supportive, and have carried on being that way and asking good questions and wanting to help me. So not as bad as I feared at all.
And just having had that positive experience, do you now regret not being open, sort of earlier in life?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would have saved me a lot of bother to be open earlier on. But then in some ways, I guess things happened the way they did for a reason. That was kind of God's plan. That was how he taught me various things over those years. But I think I wish I could have been open earlier. So I think that did really help me in the end.
And since you've been open, what have been the advantages about being open with family, with friends?
I mean, it hasn't made everything super easy. It hasn't sort of made me stop being same-sex attracted or anything. But it has just made it a bit easier when I am particularly struggling with temptation or anything, just to share that with someone in a small group or with a friend or family. And also it means people actually know to ask questions about it and to check in and see how I'm really doing, which obviously I didn't give them the chance to know when I wasn't telling anyone. So yeah, I think those are the main things really, just giving people that opportunity to support you in that way.
It's a real act of love, isn't it, to entrust somebody with something personal, like, you know, what's going on inside with your sexuality, and just lovely that you've had that trust repaid with love in return. Really encouraged to hear that. You know, what advice would you give, I don't know, somebody who's perhaps in a similar situation to you as a teenager, pretty aware that they're same-sex attracted, a Christian, and, you know, not telling anybody else about it, struggling on in silence, and perhaps, you know, even thinking of giving up? What advice would you give them, particularly when life is really tough?
Yeah, I think it is really hard, but I would recommend just talking to someone. I mean, obviously talk to God about it and talk to someone you trust. It could just be one person at first. It doesn't have to be the whole world. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing you can do, is just inviting people to help you and share what's going on. I think you'll often find people then share what's going on in their lives as well. And I think just keep going with faith. Like, God's not going anywhere. He loves you. This isn't a surprise to him. He'll be there waiting for you with open arms. His way really is best. So stick with it and go to him.
Oh, thanks, Dan. And yeah, it's just lovely to be reminded, isn't it, that actually God is the one person we don't have to come out to. You know, when you go through those writing letters and having conversations, there's one person you do not have to have that conversation with. He knows and he loves you. It's just great to be reminded of that. And just picking up on, you spoke to one person, you know, in your small group. What were you looking for in the person you first shared this with? What about them meant that you felt, this is the person I can tell? Because it would be both helpful for those who are thinking, who do I tell? But also for people who want to have, you know, want to be the sort of supportive friend that people can share big things with. What about them encouraged you to speak to them first?
I think basically I just knew they were a friend. Yeah, I guess I knew they weren't going to cut me off if I told them that. I think it's just normal things, isn't it? Just sharing life together. They'd been open with me before, prayed with me before, and yeah, we're just a sort of reassuring presence and a godly presence as well.
Brilliant. Well, that's helpful. And thanks so much. And praise God for them and praise God for you.
We've got another of our Living Out courses coming up, this time in Eastbourne, on Saturday the 15th of October. It's open to all Christians who'd like to explore sexuality in our culture, the biblical picture, and how we can support same-sex attracted Christians in our churches. You can find out more and book a place at livingout.org/events. Dan, you've written a couple of blog posts and reviews for the Living Out website, and I particularly wanted to talk about your two blogs, which I found fascinating and really helpful. In the first, entitled How Can I Find Freedom from the Weight of Sexual Sin?, you share very honestly about how a few years ago you went down a road of sexual experimentation and sin, and how God brought you back. It's a brilliant article, and I would recommend that listeners go and read that. I'm sure that lots of our listeners will also have messed up by getting into sexual relationships that they know aren't right. So I wondered if you could share with us what helped you to come back from that place.
Yes, that was a time before I came out, and when I was trying to deal with it all myself, and ended up just sort of trying to get it out of my system by hooking up with a load of guys, and found that didn't get it out of my system at all. Yeah, it was a pretty big mess, basically. I think I had to go pretty deep down into the pit, basically, and realize what a mess I was making, and realize sort of the seriousness of my sin, and ultimately what I was doing wasn't making me any happier, and I was kind of aware I wasn't making God happy with me either. So partly that realization, and then just looking back to God and seeing that he's good. Like, it's an ongoing struggle, and I've been down to that pit several times, but I find he's always kind of there at the edge of the pit, holding out a hand, bring me back out of it. He's not kind of stepping on my fingers trying to push me back down into the pit. I think going back to his word, particularly Psalm 103, I found quite helpful, where it says, "Praise the Lord who redeems your life from the pit and satisfies your desires with good things." I find that really incredible and very kind of real to me. Yeah, I think it's that thing of when you're messing up or experimenting or whatever, you are trying to satisfy some kind of desire, but with the wrong things, and God satisfies those desires with good things. So yeah, it was kind of a long process, and I guess you learn from mistakes. But yeah, ultimately just coming back to God and seeing how much better life was doing it his way and not my way. I think that was a big thing in sort of bringing me back from that place, I guess.
Yeah, it's a wonderful picture of grace, isn't it? It makes me think of the famous prodigal son. You know, he thought that what he was doing was going to make him happy, and he could do whatever he wanted, live the life that he wanted, and ended up in a pig pit. But there was the father just welcoming him back and delighting in him, and that's such a wonderful picture of God. That he wants to get us out of the pit as soon as possible, because what he's got is better for us. That's amazing. So what would you say? I mean, there may be people listening to this now who are in that pit themselves. What would you say to them? What sort of encouragement would you give them?
Tricky in some ways, because I think when I'm in the pit, I can see sort of how obviously wrong I've gone, or I don't know. It just feels a bit like, what are you doing? Like, stop, like, pull yourself together. But that's obviously not a helpful thing to say with someone. So I think it's more as kind of, like, just look back up to God, see that he loves you. It's hard. What would I say to someone in that pit?
I think you actually said something really helpful in your article. I really liked this. You said for anyone who's already halfway down the slope, or who finds themselves spat out at the bottom of it in a crumpled heap like me, don't lose hope. And I thought that was wonderful. I think your testimony itself gives people hope and encouragement, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think I say don't lose hope because my experience is that God isn't going to let you go. I think no matter how far I kind of drifted and wandered and tried to reject God, I always had that sense that he wasn't letting go of me. And I guess it was kind of the Spirit convicting me of when I was doing things wrong. And just a sense that I couldn't actually go on living the way I was because I was a Christian and I belonged to God. And yeah, he's not going anywhere. And just living his way is so much better for us. He knows what's good for us and wants what's good for us. So you're in safe hands with him. He's going to satisfy you much more than anything else. It's just run back to him, basically.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So you did do that, praise God. And you talked a bit about, I guess, the sort of aftermath of that, feeling some shame and some regret. And you talk a bit in your article about how you dealt with that. Perhaps you could expand on that a bit. That how did you overcome the shame?
I think that was another thing that just took a lot of time. I kind of just had to sit with it for a while. I'm someone who's pretty hard on themselves anyway. So I'm sort of wired to feel that way and to beat myself up about stuff. And yeah, I was almost angry at myself in the end, sort of wondering why I'd done what I'd done and why I'd felt the need to do it and why I couldn't just accept the way God saw me. Just sort of praying through that over a few months and carrying on going to church, carrying on reading the Bible and just reminding myself of who God is and how he views us. I think slowly started to sink in. And ultimately, I think it was also just God put some really great friends around me who kind of gave me a picture of his love for me and, would be excited to see me on a Sunday or just be there to hang out and have fun with. And I think I could slowly start to realize that I had messed up, but I still had good friends. I still had God It didn't make me sort of completely unlovable, and I could still be forgiven. Basically, it wasn't like I'd gone too far and was now not good enough for God. But yeah, it definitely just, I think, takes time to process that, I guess, and to acknowledge that you've done wrong and confess that, but then to really start to get to grips with how God sees you now as a Christian.
That's great. And you mentioned that, having friends around you who can share, God's love and truth with you is really important. Have you got any sort of words of wisdom about how church leaders can help and support those who've got into damaging sexual relationships or are kind of coming out of that?
I think it's really important just to give people a chance to talk and to share about their experience. You've written a really great article about this, Anne, about kind of support. You have. It's great. I think it's called Support to Grieve, and just kind of like we might have been messing up and doing things we know are wrong, but we might also have got quite emotionally involved with people, and that's hard to then kind of break off and come away from. I think it's healthiest to give people a chance to talk and not be afraid of being judged for that. I think that's important to be able to process that kind of thing. Yeah, sort of including single people in church life, in sermon illustrations, and just letting them know they're not alone and that they're seen, as we say.
That's great. And that actually brings us nicely onto the second blog post that you've written called When the Single Life Feels Long. I really relate to what you said about missing out on the normal milestones of marriage and kids and grandkids. And, you talked about planning a big birthday party as a kind of replacement wedding. And I did that for my 40th. It cost me an absolute fortune. I basically invited everybody I knew. It was great. But it's something that's a bit weird when we're single, isn't it? What are those milestones? So I wanted to ask you, what do you find hardest about the prospect of long-term singleness, which many of those of us who are same-sex attracted are facing?
I think a lot of it is the kind of practical things, like the way my career is going. I don't think I'm ever going to have a super well-paid job.
Ed, give him a rise.
I know. This is the first time somebody's asked for one on this podcast.
Cost of living is going up. I need a pay rise. But yeah, I'm not going to sort of have a spouse with a better paid job to join bank accounts with and buy a big house. And I don't know, I'm the youngest child in my family. So what happens if I get old, I'm the last one left, who's going to look after me, that kind of thing. And also just said I'm quite hard on myself. I was sort of like, I've got to put up with myself for my whole life. And I haven't got anyone else to share that burden. I'm going to have to get to know myself pretty well and put up with myself. Obviously, I have friends and family and stuff. But yeah, I guess just the prospect of potentially living alone or being lonely, even though that doesn't have to be the case at all. I guess those are fears in my mind.
So that's some of the tough stuff. What do you find helps you? What keeps you going?
I think friendship again. Also, yeah, like we said before about God not letting us go. I know He's in it for the long haul, and this was His plan for my life. So He'll always be there, which is great. And also, I think just seeing other Christians who have gone before, who are in church and are older than me and are single and have always been single or aren't married, it clearly is possible, and they seem to be thriving and enjoying life, so that gives me hope as well, and also kind of reassures me I'm not insane to think this is what I should be doing. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think role models who are kind of living out the pattern for sexuality really well and living out singleness in a really biblical and joyful way is so helpful, isn't it? You talk also in your article a bit about church culture and how sometimes it can really sort of promote marriage as the Christian ideal and that kind of thing. How do you think church culture can honour singleness better? And you talk a bit about God's bigger picture as well. I wondered if you could expand on that a bit.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because marriage and singleness are both gifts equally. And so, of course, it's right that we celebrate marriage in our churches. And, my brother recently got engaged, and that's really exciting. I'm really happy for him getting married. But yeah, I guess it's fairly rare that you hear singleness kind of celebrated in that same way in church. I think it's a lot of just including single people and looking out for them. I'm always really encouraged by stories of kind of single people being taken in by a family and given a house key or that kind of thing. And, there's no kind of obvious way of sort of, let's stand up a single person on Sunday and celebrate them being single. It's sort of, today, I think it's more just kind of doing what church family can do and being a family to them and being a support network and being friends to them. And I think that thing about God's bigger picture, I've only recently realized Jesus says there won't be marriage in heaven. And so
we're just getting a head start, aren't we? We'll have loads more practice at
it. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of, marriage is great, but as we'd say at Living Out, it's a trailer. It's a picture of something bigger. And so it's really not the be all and end all. It's not what everyone in life is striving for, to get married. There's a much bigger story of God saving us and bringing our people to himself, and we're all included in that, and we're all going, if we're Christians, to that great wedding of the Lamb and the church. And so I think keeping that in perspective is really helpful.
And it's a final word. What ultimately keeps you going?
I guess ultimately just the goodness of God. Yeah, it's definitely not easy always following God, particularly in the area of sexuality. And I do have my ongoing struggles and temptations, and I can kind of see how non-Christian friends might think I should just give it all up and do what would seem to make me happy. But I know God is good, that his plans are good, and that living his way is good. We have heaven to look forward to, which will make it all worth it, and then some, knowing that he's in control of history, and knowing where I'm heading, that gives me confidence and keeps me going.
Fantastic. Great to have the biggest perspective, isn't it? Especially when life gets tough. Well, Dan, it's been absolutely brilliant hearing from you. Thank you so much for sharing so openly and encouragingly. And thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. Don't forget to rate us and share us with your friends and your church leaders. And don't forget to check out Dan's writing on the website as well, livingout.org. We'll be back next time with another wonderful guest. But in the meantime, check out all our resources. We've got blogs, we've got articles, we've got videos, lots for you to explore. Bye for now.